Okay, so like always, let's do a file new project. And I'll do the electricals. You can name it whatever you want. And by selection, what I mean are basic. I'm going to show you how to do if-then statements and switches. And I may unzoom because I got fairly big font here anyway. So I'll give you a second. You guys all with me, sort of? I'll put in the comment at the top. Not type. What is today, the 11th?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, it's always good to put a little header on there. And that hopefully gave you time to get going here. Again, we're going to do this in main. After we do ifs and then after we do loops, we'll actually start talking about how to break this up into different methods. How many of you have used if statements in some other language? Only 3 or 4. Okay, so a lot of times you might want to decide, like what to do depending on what something is. So I'm just going to do a real quick, what do we want to decide? I'm going to do something really stupid at first just to give an if statement. So let's do just do an int number, and we'll do a console write line enter number. Right, so we're just going to enter a number, and then I'll say number equals int dot parse console read line. So we've done this before. Any questions on that part so far? We're just going to have them enter a number. Then we have to decide what to do with that number. So what do we want to do with it? Just if number I'm going to do like if number greater than what?
10.
10. All right. So then we're going to do something. And I'm going to put curly braces on this. I'll say this once, but I'll always put curly braces on it. You don't have to put curly braces on it if you only have one statement after it. If you have more than one statement, you have to use the curly braces to set up the block. So I will always use the curly braces because it's easy to forget to do them if you don't do them all the time. The other thing, notice there's no semicolon here. This is because this is the start of a block. There's no semicolon at the end of the statement. If you put a semicolon here, you'll get red lines all over the place for errors. Does that make sense? The other thing I want to say is that this has to resolve to a Boolean. And what is a Boolean? Anybody?
True, false.
Yeah, it has to be able to resolve a true false. So we have to be able to say, is the number greater than 10? Right? So what are we going to do? Well, I'm actually, we'll just make this really boring. We'll do something more interesting in a minute. Console write line, the number is greater than 10. So I'm going to do just the if first, and then we'll expand on it a little bit. And then I'm going to just do down here, I'm just going to do, actually, I'm just going to drag it in because I have it, right? Because we need that at the bottom. So that's just pressing a key to exit. If you guys, if you put it, I think I showed you before, but just to remind you, you can drag code to the toolbox and it'll stay there. And you can drag it off when you need it. So if you have things that you write over and over again like this, you can put it on your toolbox. I'll give you a second. Then we'll run this. It's a pretty dumb program, but it shows you the basic structure of an if. One, it's lowercase I, F, and then the if is in, the condition is always in parentheses. I'm going to show you some different conditions that we can do. And then the if usually has and should probably have the curly braces. Right? If I only, this one could work without them because I've only got one line subject to the if. But if I have more than one line, I have to have curly braces. You guys ready to run it? This is where I have to zoom, otherwise it won't look good. So this is pretty boring. I'm just going to enter a number. And I will enter a number that's greater than 10. So it says the number is greater than 10. Press any key to exit. What would happen if I did a number that was less?
Nothing will show up.
Yeah, nothing would show up. So let's you guys have questions about that before I go on? So, yeah.
I've kind of an unrelated question, but if we put read key to put like that, would you be able to make an action based on?
So read key, I don't know. I'd have to research it a little bit. I've tried to enter direct keys into it, and it usually fails. I'm sure it will actually need a specific key, but I think you have to define it ahead of time before that. So basically, anything inside of this if will only be executed if this is true, right? So I'm going to do it real quickly. And else, what does that do? Yeah, else is true. If this is not true, else is for every other possibility. So the only other possibility is that it's less than 10 or equal to 10. So I'm going to do console write line. Actually, what I'll do is I will say the number is less than 10. This could be false. So I want to show you this, and then we'll have one more expansion on this. So when I run this, let me zoom. Can't see that. All right, so I'm going to enter a number, and I'll enter 5. That says that the number is less than 10. That's correct. But if I enter 10, what is it going to say? The number is less than 10, because we said the other one was greater than 10, right? So in order to handle that condition, let's do, there's lots of ways you could handle it, but I want to show you else if. Actually, else if, and I'm going to do parentheses there first before the. I wish it would auto format. There is a command to format it. I'm going to do, let me unzoom so you can see it all. As I said, this zooming stuff could get you dizzy. So I'm going to do console write line. The number is 10, or the number is 10. So this is basically, you can have an if statement by itself, you can have an if else, or you can have multiple conditions with an else if, right? So you could have a whole block of these, you know, where you test for different values. What do you notice about the equal?
It's a double equal sign.
It's a double equal sign. That's when we do, notice up here we did number equal with a single equal sign. That means that we are assigning the value from the read, you know, the console to the number. This single equal sign means assignment. You're assigning a value to that variable. The double equal sign is the Boolean. It is equal to, right? It's a comparison of the values. Does that make sense? It can, a lot of times you'll get sometimes you'll get an error in the if statement if you use a single equal sign because it says you can't, you know, it has to resolve to a Boolean is what the error will be. And you'll wonder why, and it's usually because you're missing an equal sign. The other operators you can use, and I'll just do this as a comment. There's greater than, of course. I'm just going to do commas between them. There's less than. There's greater than or equal to. There's less than and equal to. There is equal, of course. And there is not equal. Not equal is an exclamation point with an equal sign. That makes sense? Those are the things you can use to get the booleans. So if you want to see something that's not equal, you can use that. This will be equal, this is less than and equal to, greater than and equal to, is greater than less than. And they resolve into, you know, as I said, it always has to resolve to a boolean. There's one other you can use, and I'm going to, with strings, it is often best to use dot equals. I think equals has a cap. And the way you would do it is, I'll show you, I'll give you an example of that in just a second. Double equals works with strings in C#. When you go to Java, it doesn't. All right. And even in C# they say it's not always reliable for absolute equal. Strings are a little bit weird, right? Because you're comparing, you have case, you know, basically you're comparing the numbers. So the comparison is usually case sensitive because each of the characters has a different number. A capital letter has a different number than a lowercase letter. Right? In the computer, they're just stored as numbers. And basically there's a list of the characters and each of the characters assigned a value. And when you do an equal or even equals, it compares the values, the number values, to see if they add up to the same.
There's no triple equals in C#.
No, there's no triple equal. I've seen triple equal. Who uses that part? JavaScript? Okay. What does it use it for? I forget. PHP?
It's has to do with the type.
Oh, the type.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that for strings?
It's it checks the type of each one.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that every object has an equals, So one of the things you can use this for is actually if you have two objects. So say you had we're not going to get there to the very end of the quarter, but say you had a customer object. You could, the only way you could compare them is you could do like customer dot equals. And then in parentheses, you do the other, see if the two customers are equal, but they're the same, which means that all their properties are set to the same values. That the content is the same. So to do a string, one of the things, these are probably bad examples in a way of programming structure because I'm just throwing everything into one big pile. Generally, a program should be about doing something, right? One thing. But I'll do real quickly. So we'll do a console write line. I'm just going to say enter the name of the current month. And then I'm just going to say if, we need to get that from the console. So string month equals console read line. But if month dot equals, and then in quotes I'll do October. Just do yeah, October. Oh, that'd be good. Happy Halloween. Which is on a Monday, which is sorry because they're the after. Is that how you spell Halloween? That looks wrong.
It's H-A.
H-A. I knew it was wrong. Is that correct? Still looks wrong. And then we'll do a quick else.
We do equals in lowercase, or is that only for Java?
Here it's uppercase. So Java has a different naming convention for methods and things than C# does. C# capitalizes them all, and Java has them all lowered. So, as I said, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So this is a better thing. Equal would also work here. You could say if month equal October without the quotes still, and it would probably work just fine. This is going to be case sensitive, and I believe it's case sensitive even with equals, which is something we can try. So let me zoom. Enter a number, do the 10, see that it says, and then I will do October, and it says Happy Halloween. Let's see what happens if I do October with a lowercase o. See, it doesn't see it. It's case sensitive. Because, as I said, it's comparing the underlying ASCII values. And the lowercase o is a different number than the uppercase o. So it is case sensitive. It has to be an exact match. I do believe, though I'd have to look it up, there is a thing that's with a string where you can say ignore case. I'm pretty sure there is a that being said, I do not remember it. I am going to just go back here. I turn down. There's equals. I'll have to look it up. I don't want to do it right now. Too lower. One of the things you can do is you can convert things to lowercase. So, so if you want to make sure that everything is all the same, you can just automatically lower the case of anything that's there. And what it'll do is all the characters will be lowercase. So it'll, you can guarantee that it'll match no matter what they type. You can do the same to upper, but I'm pretty sure yeah.
This basis for school, so October OCT and then.
Yes, actually, that's a good. So one of the things you could do. That will work. Anybody know what the two straight lines mean? Or, yeah, it's a pipe. They used to in DOS call them pipes. But there's two straight up lines means or. So actually one would work also, just one line. The double lines there are a shortcut. Basically with an or statement. If this part is true, this is true also, because basically the whole statement is true if one part of it is true with an or statement. So basically what it does is when you have the double lines there, it evaluates. If you wrote October with a capital O, it doesn't bother to evaluate this because the statement is already true, right, with an or. The and, let me do a comment above it. So that's basically or, and then the and is ampersand, ampersand. Again, you can do it with a single ampersand, but the way the ampersand works is if the first statement is false, it doesn't bother to evaluate the second statement. So these are a little bit faster, like in the nanosecond range, than the other. So I would suggest using the double lines and the double ampersand. So the Boolean, is an or. If either side of this expression is true, the whole thing is true. With an and, both sides have to be true for the expression to be true. Do you remember doing those truth charts? I don't know when they do them in math. In grade school.
No idea.
We did them in geometry.
The straight lines, we have no idea how you
Oh, the straight
hold that
lines
magic on
are
your keyboard.
right above the enter sign.
I'm giving. I'm not. Shit. Got it.
If not equal October, I think you have an extra thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we could run this and see if it works with both. So enter number 12, month. This time I'll do October with the lowercase, and it still says Happy Halloween. Now you can combine ands and ors as much as you want, although it gets fairly crazy after a couple. Right, so you could have an or and, you can combine them into a list. It gets a little complicated as to how it evaluates it too, if you do more than two. I want to show you one other thing on this. What else do I want to mention about this? Does this make fairly good sense? The thing I want to mention, one, you can have as many else ifs as you want, right? So the other thing we could have done down here is if month equals October, console right line happy Halloween, else if month equals October lowercase. There's a lot of different ways you could do that.
Instead of doing the double lines.
Yeah, you could just do an else if you preferred. These evaluations, if you're trying to be really fast and efficient, although again, it's a difference of nanoseconds or less, combining things like this is actually a little bit less efficient than doing them as separate things. But as I said, the difference is nanoseconds or less. So I want to show you one other thing real quickly, and then we might do I'll save this because I'll put it on the blog, but we'll do a whole separate program where we do it if it's a little more interesting, and then I'm going to let you do an exercise. I also want to do a switch. I might do a switch before we finish this one. But first of all, I want to show you, that if we do int parse here, and if I put anything that's not an integer in there, what happens? What?
You wanna read it?
Yeah, but what beyond not reading it, if I do a 2.3, it'll crash. And the format exception was unhandled because it wasn't an integer, it had a decimal, right? You get the same error if you enter a word where it's expecting a number. So I want to show you a way to handle this. It's a little bit confusing, but you can do it with an if statement now that we have if statements. So instead of making this a number, I'm going to declare a Boolean here. Boolean, I never know what to name mine. I'm going to call it good number. I could call it goose number, that's what I started to type. So we're creating a Boolean. So there is a type Boolean, right? And a type Boolean can only contain true or false, right? It's either true or false. So we're going to change this from parse to try parse. Now there's still one more, it's underlined because I have one more argument I have to put, and this is weird and would take a lot of explanation. So I think partially I will explain it, but you might just take it on faith. I'm going to do out number. So try parse, what it does is it takes what's in the console, and if it isn't good, it will return a false, right? If it is good, it will return a true, and it will assign the to number. Out means that instead of this going inside the method being try parse, it's referring to a variable outside the method. It's an out parameter, which is a very confusing thing to explain. And this is about one of the only times I ever use it. But it's required by the try parse. So the trick of it is that it's going to assign the value to number if it's good. If it's bad, it won't crash now, it'll just return a false. Now, so what we might want to do if we want to make sure that this will crash, though, because it's compared to, right? So number is an integer, so it will crash. Well, actually, it won't crash. Because what happens if it doesn't assign is it assigns 0. I believe. We could try it. The thing is, you want to deal with what happens if it's not a good number. So if, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do not a good number. So the exclamation point there.
close the curly brackets before that or no?
Which curly brackets?
Well, never mind. I actually just answered your question.
Oh, okay. So that means if it's not true, right? You could also, if you prefer, so that's a shortcut of not true. It also works to say not equal to true. And if clearer, you might prefer. Yeah.
Can you, instead of saying not equal true, could you say equal false?
You could actually. That would actually probably even be more efficient. But that's the other thing you could say too. But when you put the exclamation in front of it, that's the same as saying it's false too. But you could do this, or you could do equal true.
So just to reiterate, when you put a double equal sign, that means it's not equal to?
No, double equal means equal.
Okay.
Not equal is the exclamation equal.
Okay, thank you.
So basically the whole thing we want is we need to deal with it if it's false. Right? So there's a couple of things that we could do here. We could ask them to do it again. Would help if we did loops here, which we aren't doing yet. Because you could actually put them into a loop that will not let them exit until they enter a valid number. So if they're stubborn, they could be there a long time. Or we could just say, I'm just going to end the program. So I'm going to do console write line. I'll just say restart and enter a valid number. Okay, and then I will do a console read key because I'm going to kill the program here. And I'm going to do a return. Actually, I might put press any key to exit, just so they know what's happening. Because if I don't put a read key down there, they won't get to see the error message. Right? It'll just flash by and they'll be gone. So return. You guys know the return keyword? It basically, there are times when we do methods, you can return a value. But return always marks the end of a method. So if this comes into here and sees return, it's going to ignore everything down below. The method is over at that point. But that'll only be true if the number is false. So that's a little bit of complication, but it will keep you from crashing, which is a good thing. So I'm going to run that. And so if I enter a bad number, it'll be a number, but I'll just do 12.5. It says restart and enter a valid number. I should have said integer because that is a valid number. It's just not an integer. And then it ends. So let's actually, I'm going to say a valid integer so they know. And again. And if I do enter a valid integer, so I'll enter 4. Then it goes on and I'll do October and everything works. The thing about an if statement is it ignores it. If the initial condition is not true, so if good number is not equal to false, but it's equal to true instead, it just will ignore the if statement. Does that kind of make sense? These are really important in programs. There's a lot of times when you have to decide what to do based on particularly user input, but it could be input that comes from somewhere else too, right? If we get this message from the database, we do this. If we get this message, we do something else, right? Or if the user enters this, then we do this. Otherwise, we do something else. If statements are very fundamental to all programs. They look exactly the same in Java, and they look exactly the same in JavaScript. So that's one reason, as I said, I like the C# is that you're getting basically, there is zero difference in how if statements look between those languages. Any questions on all of that? I'm going to add to the mess, and then we'll do something that's a little less messy. And then I'll give you a little exercise. And we might call it a morning. So I don't want to put it after the read key. I'm going to do one other thing, and this is going to be a different way to make a decision, but it's a little bit more limited. This is a switch statement. As I said, I'll post all of this online. So the switch statement is, see if I can remember I don't know, is this a switch the keyword? Yep. Before I do the switch though, let's enter another value. These don't have to be done with numbers, but everything has to be an exact match. And you can't do comparative values. Like you can't do greater than, less than. You kind of need to say that it's equal to. I'm trying to think of what we want to enter. I guess I can say between, but it's inclusive. Again, this is kind of boring. This is something you can do with a menu, though. We'll look at that later. Again, that works better with a loop. So I'm going to do, so int, I'll call it choice, equal, should we do a try parse? So actually, I have to change this a little bit. I have to change this to a Boolean. Bool something or other. I'm going to up here do int choice. If you wanted to do a double, you could do a double try parse, right? And then I'm just going to, I'm not even going to give a 1. This time I will do this. If not, choice, return. So your program just dies. Okay. Oh, it's not choice. If not, good. Boolean is what I have to negate. Okay. So I want to do a switch. And I'm going to put choice here. This is the value we're switching. And I'm going to do curly braces. Okay. And then I'm going to do case colon 1. And what do we want to do in case, if cases where what do we want to do if it's 1? Let's just say you entered 1. Very exciting. Oh, actually, there's no colon there. My brain is not entirely here. Colon. Oh, and then you have to, this is a required. If you're going to stop there, you do a break. Okay. So the break means you're done with the switch. If the case is equal to 1, you say you entered 1, and then you break, you leave the switch. Right. If the case is, let's do if the case is equal to 2, and I'm not going to do anything, and I'm going to do case, I can't type, case 3, and then down here I'll do console right line case. All right, you chose 2 or 3. So you can drop through a couple of numbers if you want. I'm just trying to show you and then we'll do a break there. And see it's happy now. Case 4, and I'll just do, actually, let's do this one. Copy. And then if they choose some number altogether different, I'm going to do default. And then I'll just do a console right line, not a valid number, or not a valid choice. So this gives you kind of all that you can do with the switch. Switches are good if you have definite values. You're not comparing values, so you can't do greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. You basically have to match these exactly, and they can be words. They don't have to be numbers, but they can be words. Again, with consoles, these can be really good with a menu, because you can say, these are your choices for a menu, type 5 to exit. And then you can go through the switch to determine which thing to do within the program. So they have a colon. You have the switch with whatever number or term you're evaluating. Doesn't have to be an integer, but doubles are a bit tricky. It's really hard to match all the decimal places if there are decimals. It can be a little tricky. It's usually integers or strings that are used with this. This is a break. That means that if you type in 1, you're done. If you type 2 or 3, it'll fall down to here and it says you chose 2 or 3. So you can fall through several cases if you want. You do really need to account for all your cases, though, all your possibilities. And then 4, basically it's just like 1. If you type 4, it'll just say you entered 4 and quit. If you type something else entirely, it'll come down to the default. Default is like else for the switch. Does that make sense?
What do you do if, so say you take in 2 inputs from the user, you can't do a comparison case?
You can't do it. You'd have to use ifs for that. So if you need to compare 2 things, I would do if, else if rather than switch. Switch is really just for a single value, and you're just seeing which value they chose and doing something different from it. Again, it doesn't have to be a number, but so we made sure that it was a number. If it's not a number, we just exit the program with abruptly with no warning. So I'll run it. Okay, and this is, again, it's kind of, I'm going to make it bigger. So we'll enter a number. I'm just going to enter a number. We'll do October. And then I'm going to do an integer between 1 and 4. First, I'm going to do 2. And then it says you chose 2 or 3. So that's the fall through. It would be so nice to have loops so that I don't have to restart every time. All right, let's restart it again. So I'll do some number. I'll just do some garbage here. And then I'm going to do, so this time I'll do 4. And it says you entered 4. So, you know, it fell down to 4. And then one last try. So I'm going to enter number 5, December. And this time I'm going to enter like 7. And it just says not a valid choice. So it falls to the default. Does that make sense? So this is basically all the tools you need for switching, for making decisions in here.
But each case is one value.
When you do cases, there's simple single value. In if statements, you can compare values, right? And you can compare 2 user values. Right, so cases ends with a colon and breaks into with a semicolon.
Okay. What would you do to combat the thing that if the user enters not a number but a digit?
So what we did for that is the try catch, right? So we did a try parse, and if they enter something else, right now all I have is return, which means the program's over. So if we go, so you validate it before they get to the switch, yeah. So I'm just going to enter some garbage here, and it just closes. Doesn't crash per se, it just closes. I would do more in here. I just was being lazy. So what questions do you have about this real quickly?
In the try parse,
Yeah,
and the first example for good number,
right.
if it's good, it puts the value in the variable number.
Right. So in the try parse, it reads it and says, can I turn this into a legitimate integer? If it can, it looks to where what number it's supposed to, what variable it's supposed to apply it to, and it will assign the value that it pulls from the console to that number. If it's false, it will return false, and I actually think it assigns a 0 there. So it may not crash down here, but it would be just a 0. We could try that. Accept that. Except that it isn't going to continue on here. I'd have to comment out that. I'll check on that though. I will check to see if it assigns a 0 or if it just leaves it unassigned. So does that make sense? As I said, I'll post this. I want to do one more little thing. Do you guys want a quick break? Okay, because I need a restroom. So let's do like 10 minutes. And then we'll do kind of a more structured little program, and then I have a little peer exercise you guys can do. And with the peer exercises, I'll explain it when we come back. But they basically it's just for you guys to try something in groups of 2 or 3, and you post it, and you get the points no matter whether you solve it or not, as long as you post something. So yeah, 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense. I kind of still have some like in there. This one needs a semicolon. Sorry. I know, I don't know what that is. Oh, you want to looks like an extra bracket right there. So it's that bracket. There you go.
Okay, okay. I did. I went into the 2%. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Took me a while, but I had to get Yeah, move on to the next one.
Not yet. No, I'm probably gonna work on that like.
Yeah, that way, no, and that way.
I think I've done something similar to JavaScript. It's like a great calculator. I think it's going out of the.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't have that.
78%.
Yeah.
You got an A.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You gotta match up the numbers to the letters.
Java's helping you a lot. It's
Yeah,
pretty similar, right?
Same, it's the same. thing. A little bit different.
but you'll be here 3 hours. Okay, where?
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah, that's why I sort of, it's very, very good. Yeah.
you got half an hour cat time.
I like to try it out.
Yeah.
I saw the comment from assignment 1 and 2 as
Yeah, so just upload the C# if you have it, and I'll give you the prompts.
yeah, so I changed the my Google Docs is can show
Oh,
anybody.
you're, okay, yes.
Yeah.
There were 2 people, yours were the Google Docs that I couldn't see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll give you the points, I'll look at them.
Thank you. Yeah. I didn't
I
know
assumed,
that.
did you share them with Stephen.Conger or something?
Oh, and also I can fix the link. Can anybody?
Anybody, that's actually probably the best. Anybody that has the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't have an account under my school one at Google, so I can't log in to see things under that account. So yeah, sharing it with anybody that has the link is better.
So I resolve with that link.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that sounds good. I'll look at them. I hope soon, maybe today, if not, but it may be a couple of days. But thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask about that, and then somebody else did the project files. I'm not sure who did that. I'm just commenting this before I go to the next thing. It's about 4 minutes, I think. Yeah. Okay. Save all of this. Because I'm going to make a new project here in a second. 10 minutes might be too long, but we'll give it. So while we wait for the time, any other questions, comments? Does that make sense overall, the if statements?
I think I actually do.
That's what I do.
I got about 1 more minute. Go, but there's still 2 people out. It's not really a lot of time if people run out for a cigarette, I suppose. I should ask Danny where she is with when she's doing the Python, if she's on ifs now, or whatever, what she's on. They look a little different in Python. We'll get going. How many are missing? 1, 2, 3. I'm just counting. Actually, I'm just counting where I see laptops and folders and things. Might be more. But we'll go anyway. It's still recording. So if you look at the recording, there's going to be at least a 10-minute gap in the middle of it, right? I'm going to just do a new project. I wasn't zooming that. I can if you want. This is just another little sample, and then we'll do the peer exercise, and I'll show you how to do that. Where is it? There it is. So, same as always, C# console application. I'm just going to do like a birth, I'll call it birth date. What I'm going to do is basically do a simple statement where you enter your birth date and it determines if you're old enough to buy alcohol. So there'll be a couple things in there, and I can introduce a new data type. This won't take very long, and it's kind of just a rehearsal of some of the stuff we already did. But I'm going to do OK. Now, it replaces the other one. I saved everything there. It should ask you to save it if you haven't. I'm going to zoom down. So I'm going to do console right line. Enter your, I guess, actually going to do a variable up here, date, time, birthday. So this is something we haven't done before. And one of the types, I told you that most everything we do will use integer or double or string. But this is another type, data type that it gets used quite a bit. It's date time. It handles, like it says, it handles dates and times. You know how computers store dates? They're just numbers. They start counting at some arbitrary point in the past. And what they do is they keep track of how many days, hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds it's been since that date, whatever their zero date is. They used to do it from 1900, but I think they don't go back that far now. Anything before that date is just put a minus number in front of us, right? So then it counts from that date backwards with a minus sign. Does that make sense? So they does anybody know what date they're using now? I suppose we could figure that out if we really wanted to. But that being said, they make it so that you can see the date as a date. You know, and you can extract year and hours and etc. What I'm going to do here isn't as my brain is gone. Isn't as accurate as it could be. I'm just going to subtract the years, where you really should track the months and the days too. I suppose we could do that. So I'm going to do a Boolean. I'll call it good date. I have real trouble thinking of Boolean names, but it's going to be equal to date time try parse and we'll do console read line. So I wanted to show you a couple of things with the try parse. Is that most types have it. Oh yes, I have to do out. Same as before. Out birthday. I think I'm still zoomed.
Yeah.
So this is exactly like the int part, try parse, except it's date time try parse, right? It'll see if it's a valid date. And it allows you to enter the date in a lot of different ways. The way I usually enter it will be, you know, the day, well, so the month, day, year. That's just weird. And you can use the slashes or you can use the dashes, you know, and you can also, I think you can do it, you do need to do it numerically. You can't just say May or June. Like, you have to use a month, a number for that.
Can it do the day, month, year? Being that I'm from Europe, I always write it backwards from here.
Right, it can.
Because for some months it could be confusing.
Yes, And then what I'm trying to remember is if you have to change your collation. So by default, when you install it, it kind of figures out if you're in North America or you're in Europe, England, and it changes the structure, the date based on that. And if you were in Europe, it would, if you're in England, it would give you, for your default for money would be pounds, and your default for, if you were in France, it would be euros. I mean, a lot of those defaults are built into the correlation, so it might be an option you could set. And it may recognize it just fine. You can try it. But yeah, I know most of the world does year, month, day. So what do we want to do if it's not a valid date? So if not, good date. Again, what would be ideal is to have loops, but I don't want to introduce them yet. Oh, and this should have a capital D.
Another D.
And I need another D. And I don't need an E. All right.
So it should say date not valid.
Yeah, so I'm
Enter.
going to let you enter it again. The trouble is, so I'm going to give you one more time. I'll show you something. So we can do good date now. I'm just going to say, because we've already used it. And I'm going to do something that I didn't show you. If not good, because we aren't looping, so I'm just going to say, and then I'm going to actually, I'll just drag this in. So we'll just get out of there. Before we do, and then I'm just going to do, so it'll just end, right? It'll warn you that you have 2 tries, right, to enter a valid date. One of the things that this does that I wanted to show you is that you can have an if inside of an if, right? So this is the beginning of the outer if, end of the outer if, beginning of the inner if. You can embed if statements inside of each other. There is a limit, but the limit would be beyond sanity, because you can only do it 255 times. Because of the way it records things in a byte, I think. I mean, you could do 255 layers of embedding, but only an insane person would ever do that. Usually you only have, typically it's like this, like 1 layer inside, or at the most 3, or 4. But you can have an if inside of an if. I wanted to show you that. Does that make sense? It gets confusing, and again, if it helps, you can comment. Keep them track. As I said, the curly braces in the end, curly braces will be your bane, because if you get these out of order, things start to go askew. And then just to follow that through, this is still the end main, and program class and namespace. So there's lots of curly braces. Okay, so let's do, so basically we've parsed out the date. I'm going to declare, we have date up here. Let's do, I'm going to declare them at the top. I'm going to do date time today. I'm actually going to assign it right now, date time now. What do you think date time now does? Yeah, it gets the exact date and time right now, as long as your computer knows what time it is. That's what it's doing. So date time now will just give us the current date and time.
You don't need parentheses after now.
No, actually now is a property, weirdly. We'll talk about properties and methods when we talk about classes. This isn't a method, so it doesn't need parentheses, whereas readline is a method, so it needs parentheses. We'll talk about, it's a little confusing initially, and actually sometimes, I actually have always been surprised that now doesn't have parentheses. It sounds like it should be a method. Okay, does that make sense? I'm going to declare one other one, and will it be a date time? I'm actually going to do just int actually just call it age. That makes more sense. All right. So we have variables and do it there. Down here we'll have the date, and that's the birthday. So do we want, we could do, instead of age, we could have that. I'm going to do int years, int month. I don't know that this will work though. And int days. Let's just do year. Well, we might ignore these for right now. I'm going to start off with a real simple one. I'm going to say age equals today dot year minus birthday. Is it birthday or date? It's birthday dot year. So that'll subtract the years. The other thing we could do is, you know, you could, this will give you a year, but it won't give you, it's not particularly accurate in terms of months and days. Does that make sense? But it'll give you the gist. And then I'm just going to do console write line. You are, I'll do a placeholder. Years old. I'll do age. So I said this isn't accounting for months, so it could be off by a year. You guys see it? So I did the age equals today.year minus birthday.year. Part of, again, what these things have methods, like date time has methods and it has properties. What the year does there is it basically just extracts only the year from the date. So as I said, we're ignoring months, we're ignoring, but we could do the month and day as well if we want. We might try that in a minute. Let's see if this works. First of all, let me zoom this again. So first of all, let me enter an invalid date. So usually it's month. So I did, everything's valid except that, but notice it says enter a valid birth date. So I actually will enter my actual birth date so you guys can see how old I am. Born in the middle of the last century. Whoa, what happened?
We didn't do a console right button. Press any key to enter.
Oh, yes, we did. So, good eye. So I'll drag that down underneath here.
How do you open the toolbox again?
So the toolbox should be there. Let me look in a moment. Toolbox should be along the side. Right there.
Oh, okay. And then I can drag.
Yeah, and if you want to pin it, if you pin it, what it does is it makes it
So mine, every time I try writing in a birthday, it's crashes.
okay. So it should work. Let me look at what, I'll look at it in just a
I
second.
just as mine noticed that if I put a 0, like my birthday's in January, it kicks it back. It makes me have to review it. I wasn't crashing. Yeah.
So if I do 5/9, so, and that is correct for mine. So let's see. Oh, you have the, you also need the console. Boy, that's hard to read. Even zoomed. So at the very bottom, you need press any key to exit and read key. Yeah. You need the read key at the bottom because otherwise it's.
Oh, it's.
Otherwise it just flashes by before you can see it. There we go. And you could experiment with what numbers it accepts. Did you try the year?
Yeah, it doesn't recognize it.
It doesn't recognize it. So there might
But
be,
it takes your dashes and slashes.
yes. There might be something on the date time. So I'm going to do date time birth. So I'm going to just test something. Sure. To universal time, local time, get date time formats. So there might be some options there for doing the. A lot of times, and I've never memorized this. I've been doing C# for a decade, but it changes. So if you do a dot, you get all the IntelliSense, right?
Oh, yes.
And it'll tell you what are the possibilities for that object.
Oh, yeah.
So it's working for when I put like my birthday in, but for the heck of it, I did my brother's.
Yeah.
It's not giving me.
What did
It's his is 7/10/1986.
should work?
The weird thing is it doesn't work.
Let me try 7/10. 7/10.
Oh, no, now it works. I don't know what.
Yeah.
It's like it didn't do it the first time. Now it did.
So date time is a little tricky. And there are lots of other things. And as I said, if you work with the months and stuff, there's today year, there's today month. So
You don't have to put the 19 in there for the year.
you don't, it works with 2 digits too?
As soon as it's 19, you need that.
Huh, yeah. That wouldn't be true for a lot of people. But
There's not too many people born in 1800 still around.
No, no.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that was the oldest person ever to live was 122 years.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, but that's just died.
Yeah, they have that, yeah.
It says internet, so I'm wondering if I.
Is it a quarter?
Yeah, I would really doubt that there's anybody alive that was born in the
0 years
in the
old?
19th century.
It's because.
Oh,
The world is
So just.
We're just still alive with that.
Or they're up, living up in the mountains and nobody knows.
Well, actually, they did genetic tests.
Ah.
It was a recent article. It basically said
And then you could get rid of
120 years.
Good.
They said that there might be one or two individuals ever that will surpass that at all, but unless they modify our genetics. Which they might do. I don't know. So anyway, if you guys want to do the months and years, you can, but I think let's do the peer exercise instead. I'll save this one too. As I said, the only things I wanted to do here is again show you the if, show you you can embed an if, and show you the date time. Date time can be fun. I mean, there are things you can do with that. Questions on that? Okay, so I'm going to save all. I will post it and the other one up there.
Yeah.
And then let me bring up, and I think I will stop the